Your mother didn't just die, Elena. She was killed, and your father paid to make sure no one ever found out. Those words hit me like a freight train, ripping through the carefully constructed reality I had built for the past 12 years. I was 28 years old, standing in the middle of my penthouse in downtown Miami, the city lights twinkling like indifferent stars through the floor-to-ceiling windows. On the other end of the phone was a man I paid a lot of money to stay quiet. A former hospital administrator with a gambling problem and a conscience that only kicked in when his bank account was running low. This wasn't a movie. This was my life, my family. My father, Richard Sterling, the real estate titan of South Florida, who I'd idolized my whole life. My mother, Isabella, was the heart of our home. She was the warmth to my father's cold ambition. They seemed invincible, but when I was 16, she died suddenly. Heart failure, they said. I was a kid. I accepted it. It was easier than accepting that my world could be so cruelly shattered. When my father remarried Olivia, his former assistant, who is only 4 years older than me just 2 years later, I felt a cold knot of betrayal tighten in my stomach. I've spent the last decade trying to prove that Olivia was a snake, that she weaseled her way into our lives and somehow caused my mother's death. I've been tearing my family apart from the inside out, convinced I was the avenging angel my mother deserved. And now, this phone call. It confirms my worst fears. But the truth is more disgusting than I ever imagined. It wasn't just Olivia. My father knew. He was in on it. He chose his reputation, his company, over the life of his wife. The audacity. The sheer heartbreaking audacity. And now I'm left holding a truth that could destroy my entire family's legacy. If you were me, in my Louboutins, standing in the ruins of your family, what would you do? So, here's the thing. When you grow up as a Sterling in Miami, you learn that money isn't just a currency, it's a shield. It protects you from consequences, from the law, from the truth. My father, Richard Sterling, he built this empire from nothing. I respected that. I went to Harvard, got my MBA, and came back to work for him. I was the good daughter, the dutiful one. But the day my mother died, the shield cracked. For years, the narrative was simple. Olivia was the villain. She was the gold-digging assistant who saw my mother as an obstacle. When my mom died, and my dad remarried her so fast it gave me whiplash, it clicked. It made an ugly kind of sense. I spent my 20s as a detective, sifting through the past. I went through my mother's old things. I found a diary that detailed her feeling sick all the time, nausea, dizziness. She wrote about how the doctors couldn't figure it out. She was scared. I remember that. I remember seeing her fading, her beautiful olive skin turning pale. But I was a teenager. I was more concerned with my own stupid world. I'll never forgive myself for that. I brought my suspicions to my father when I was 22. We were in his office, the one with the panoramic view of Biscayne Bay. I was trembling, holding the diary. "Dad," I said, my voice shaky, "I think there was something wrong with the medical reports. I think Olivia might have done something to her. To Mom." My father didn't even blink. He put down his Mont Blanc pen, looked at me with those cold gray eyes that were usually so warm, and said, "Don't be dramatic, Elena. Your mother was sick. We did everything we could. Don't you dare disrespect her memory with this nonsense." I was stunned. He dismissed me like I was a hysterical child. That moment changed something in me. A switch flipped. My dad didn't just reject my theory, he rejected me. And he chose Olivia. From that day on, it was war, a cold war. I went to work every day, smiling, playing the part of the dedicated daughter, all while I was building my power base. Olivia, of course, was smart. She had her claws in everything. She co-signed the contracts. She managed the new developments. She was on the board. She saw me as a threat, and she treated me like one. It was a constant, subtle undermining. She'd take credit for my ideas in meetings. She'd whisper things to my father to turn him against me. She knew how to push my buttons. She'd say things like, "Elena, darling, you have your mother's passion but not her grace." That one always cut deep. She was a master at manipulation, using my own love for my mother as a weapon against me. The first major plot twist came when I discovered the payment trail. I hired a private investigator, a shadowy figure named Marco, who used to work for the FBI. He found something concrete, a wire transfer from a dummy corporation which traced back to a branch of our own company to Dr. Harrison, my mother's primary physician. It was dated the week before my mother died. I felt like throwing up. This was it. The smoking gun. It was real. My father and Olivia had conspired. Dr. Harrison was bought off to falsify the autopsy report. The death certificate was a lie. My mother had been poisoned, but no one would ever know. I had been right all along, and the truth was 1,000 times more painful than the suspicion. I sat in my car, shaking. I could feel the heat, the Miami humidity, but I was ice cold. My first instinct was to go to the police, to drag my father and that conniving, wretched woman through the mud. I wanted to see her face plastered on the news. I wanted the world to know that Olivia wasn't just a homewrecker. She was a monster. But then I thought about the company, my mother's legacy, my father's legacy. I was the heir. I was next in line. If I exposed them, the scandal would tank the stock. The company would be worthless. I'd be destroying the very thing my mother helped build. I'd be hurting the hundreds of employees who relied on us. So, instead of the law, I chose revenge. But not the kind of revenge you see in movies. I decided to play the long game. I decided I would take everything from Olivia. I would dismantle her piece by piece, from the inside. I started with the small things. An email accidentally sent to the wrong person, exposing a small error in her budget. Another anonymous complaint to HR about her management style. I was subtle. I was patient. I became a master of the corporate chess game. I outworked her. I outsmarted her. I built alliances with the board members, the key investors. I charmed them, wined and dined them, and I let them know, without ever saying a word, that Olivia was a liability. I made her look sloppy. I made her look desperate. I was methodical. My father watched it all unfold, and he started to give me more responsibility. He saw that I was a better businesswoman than Olivia. He gave me control of the East Coast expansion. It was a huge, lucrative project that Olivia had been eyeing. The day he handed it to me, I saw a flicker of something in Olivia's eyes. Fear. It was intoxicating. I finally had the upper hand. The second plot twist came when I started to notice that my father was looking at me strangely, with suspicion. He started pulling old file records from my mom's era. He was looking for the same things I had looked for, but from a different angle. He was trying to find out if I knew the truth. He called me into his office. It was late. The building was empty. The cleaners were vacuuming in the distance. "Elena," he said, his voice quiet, "you've been spending a lot of time with Marco." He knew about the investigator. My heart stopped. He knew. "You've been digging. I've seen the files on your computer. I know what you're looking for. You think you're a detective? You think you're going to solve a crime that never happened?" "Never happened?" I shot back, the rage boiling over. "Mom was poisoned. Olivia killed her, and you covered it up. You paid a doctor to lie. Tell me that's not what happened." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You are so naive, Elena, so determined to be the tragic heroine. You think you know everything, but you don't know the half of it." He looked at me with something that looked like pity. "Your mother, she was a fragile woman. The pressure of this life, the pressure of being a Sterling, she couldn't handle it. She had episodes, deep depressions. She was terrified of losing me, of losing the life we'd built. She tried to control me, and I resented her for it." He took a breath, as if steeling himself. "She didn't need poison. She was a slow death. But when she found out about Olivia, it was too much. She couldn't handle the public humiliation. She felt like she was a failure. So she took a handful of her sleeping pills with a bottle of wine. It was her choice, Elena." I was silent. My hands were shaking. "That's not what the report says," I whispered. "The report was a gift," my father said, his voice cold. "To your mother's dignity, to the family's name. It saved us all from the scandal. I paid to make it look like a heart attack so the world wouldn't know your mother was a pathetic, weak woman who couldn't handle her own life." I felt my world shatter again. For the second time, the narrative I had held so dear was a lie. It wasn't a murder. It was a suicide. A tragic, devastating suicide that my father had exploited and twisted for his own benefit. I had been so focused on Olivia being the villain that I had refused to see the obvious. My mother was hurting, and no one helped her. I looked at him, the man I once idolized. "You were going to let me believe she was murdered?" I asked, my voice a broken whisper. "Would that have been better? That your mother was so unhappy she killed herself? Or that the world thinks she was a victim of a crime?" He said. He was trying to spin it. He was always spinning it. And then, the final blow. "Besides," he added, "Olivia wasn't the mastermind. She was just there. She was a comfort. But you, my darling daughter, you're a mastermind. You're just like me." At that moment, it hit me. I was so consumed with my crusade against Olivia that I had failed to see my father was the real architect of this misery. He had used my mother's death to consolidate his power, to marry a trophy wife, and to maintain his pristine image. He had let me spend years hating the wrong person while he played the grieving, patient widower. I sat there, staring at my father, feeling a profound emptiness. My entire identity was built on the foundation of revenge. I had sacrificed my 20s, my relationships, and my sanity for this. And what did I have to show for it? I had become a bitter, ruthless person. I had mirrored the worst parts of my father. I had become him. Olivia walked in then, carrying a folder. She saw our faces and knew instantly. She knew her time was up. She didn't even look surprised. She just stood there, looking smug, like she had won some unspoken battle. "You know," she said, a cruel smile playing on her lips, "I never wanted her dead. I wanted her to leave. But your father wanted the company and the reputation more than he wanted her. I was just collateral damage. I took the money. I took the position. I took the ring. And I took the blame from you. You were so busy blaming me for everything, you never saw he was the one pulling the strings. You were so angry at me, you couldn't see the puppet master." She looked me in the eye, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're just a sad little girl who wanted her mommy back. And you made your entire life about hating me. How pathetic." The shock of her words was a slap in the face. I was reeling. But then, something clicked. I had a choice. I could keep fighting this losing battle, trying to punish the wrong people, or I could finally step up and take control of my own life, my own legacy. I wasn't going to let them win by making me into a monster too. I had to let go of the narrative they gave me and write my own. I walked out of that office, and I didn't look back. The next morning, I called my lawyer and had him draft a non-disclosure agreement. I didn't go to the police. I didn't expose them. I did something they never expected. I demanded a buyout. I sold my shares back to the company at a premium. It was millions of dollars. Enough to ensure I would never have to work another day in my life if I didn't want to. But I also kept a copy of the evidence. It's my insurance policy. My father knew it too. The look on his face when I told him I'd walk away and let him keep his reputation, but that I would always be one step away from destroying it. That was the most satisfying moment of my life. I disarmed Olivia. I took away the source of her power over me, my anger. I told her I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I didn't want to be her victim anymore. I told her, "You can keep the title of Mrs. Sterling. You and my father deserve each other. But you will never have my respect, and you will never have my silence if you ever speak my mother's name again." It's been 3 months. I'm in a new apartment, in a different part of Miami. I'm starting a boutique real estate firm of my own, a small one that focuses on ethical development, on helping families, not just building towers for the rich. I'm finally honoring my mother not by clinging to a myth about her death, but by embodying the compassion and strength she taught me. She wasn't weak. She was in pain. And I will never let my pain define me the way it defined her. So, here I am. I walked away from a multi-billion-dollar empire, a legacy, and a family that was rotten to its core. But I walked away with my soul intact. Am I in the wrong for not exposing them? For letting my father and his wife walk away free? Maybe. There's a part of me that will always wonder if I should have burned it all to the ground. But I realize that justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes, it's about liberation. It's about choosing yourself over the ghosts of your past. If you were in my shoes and you found out the truth about your family, could you walk away?